Welcome. It's another episode of Fixing Your Agile Coaching. This week, we got professional Scrum trainer, mentor, extraordinaire Steve Porter. Steve, it's great having you here. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me out. Wow, mentor. I'm keeping that and
I like
my
it.
wall. I like that.
You've been a good Scrum mentor to both Todd and I. The astute reader will notice that Steve actually did the foreword to our book, Fixing Your Scrum. You can see some of Steve's thoughts in the foreword of our book. So he was kind enough to do that for us. Steve's got an interesting topic he's been chewing around and throwing around and trying out. And I thought, let's bring that here and talk about it. Because I think there are some things in the Scrum Guide, Steve, that kind of get almost this, it would be sacrilege to mess with, right? Yeah. It's like, don't touch that, leave it alone. And I really think rethinking the Scrum values is some of that area where you start messing with them. People are like, whoa, leave that alone.
You want to do what now?
It's like, and so I think this is actually some fertile ground for an Agile coach or a Scrum master to really jump in and look at, because maybe, Steve, those 5 values, if I'm understanding kind of the direction you've gone lately in, maybe those 5 aren't quite right.
Yeah, I can't remember when it kind of kicked off for me, but the way I think about it, and we talked about this earlier, all of your listeners should know about the 3 questions for the daily Scrum. Right. And they've been around for a very long period of time. And most of the people that I know, the Agile coaches, the Scrum trainers, the Scrum masters, I want to say the good Scrum masters, the ones who really get it, realize fairly early on that the 3 questions, nothing necessarily wrong with them per se, but you can get too hung up on them. They can be pedantic, and you can use them without knowing the reason behind them. And over time, the importance of the 3 questions diminished in the Scrum Guide, and I think they were kind of optional, the last one. Now they're gone. And I look at the Scrum values the same way, in that the way they're currently written, they're pretty pedantic. Here are the 5 values that your team needs to use, consider, I can't remember the exact wording for it, to be successful at Scrum. And my thinking is, why are we so prescriptive there? Why those 5? Is there empirical evidence somewhere that those 5 are the best 5? That if some team, wanted to, these are great and all, but our values are actually different. Lots of companies have their own company values, and maybe those might be better for the teams to think about than these 5 values that someone else created for them. Like, having someone else impose values on you just seems kind of weird, much like the 3 questions, right? I love when teams figured out a better way of getting to the root of what those 3 questions are, finding their own way, which was much more valuable than just, what did I do today? What did I do yesterday? What impediments do I have?
Right.
Having your own makes them your own.
Yeah, it's it's the comparison to the 3 questions is great. A lot of us moved on to like item aging or walking the work, but it was a very local solution, right? It was what the team needed. If the teams were constantly getting stuck, then we would bring item age in to highlight something stuck. Yeah. If a team wasn't looking at the holistic workflow of getting from point A to done, well, then we would walk the work. And so it was very localized solutions, which I remember a video from Ken, and it might be from the 2017 Scrum Guide release, where he said, look, the questions were supposed to provoke a conversation about your progress. It was supposed to get you to inspect your sprint goal and check out your sprint backlog and make sure that the team was working together well. It wasn't supposed to be so legalistic, but that's where it went. But now you hear, and in the circles that we're in, so Todd and I teach a lot of private and public, we see a lot of companies, we're seeing a very, is your focus off today? Or are you committed to this team? And it's almost like they've turned into these swords that people swing, and it's like, that's not, they're just behavioral. These are our aspirations. These are our cultural aspirations of our Scrum team. These are the behaviors and traits we want to see amplified as a means to create an environment where great work can happen. And I'm with you. Maybe those 5 in every context, could that be a best practice, by the way? Those 5 values in every, I don't think that works necessarily all the time, right?
Yeah, values are such a tricky thing
Yeah.
to be pedantic about. We're both trainers, so when we get into class, one of the things like we're teaching, and
Yeah.
I always think the only people that should be teaching values are parents and pastors,
Right.
right? As a training professional, I really feel uncomfortable teaching you about values because values are things that you own.
Yep.
They should come from you, not somebody else imposing them on you. Um, so having them be very, again, pedantic and immutable is a term that you used earlier. Um, just seems like such a miss. Now that being said, having a discussion about values and highlighting that values might be an important thing for a team to have if they want to have good outcomes. And for me, I get to talk to a lot of people about this. And if I ask someone what the 5 Scrum values are, normally they'll be able to rattle them off really quick.
Yep.
If I ask someone, why are they important? They're like, oh, let me think about that. And often I'll get answers all over the place. The Scrum Guide does talk about why they're important, and it's really to create that environment of empiricism and trust. Trust's really important for me because if you haven't got an environment of trust, being empirical is really hard. Um,
Yeah.
and I worry that people get so hung up on the 5 that they miss the really important piece. And I think when I'm working with teams, I want to have a really good conversation about what values do we have as a team that help us achieve this environment of creating trust that we can have, empiricism flourish. What values do our companies have that help this? And potentially, what values do our companies have that might negatively impact this? Which company is it? Nike. There's a Nike. There's a company out there that one of their values is competition.
Yeah.
And if that's a value of the company and you're trying to create cross-functional self-managing teams and competition is a value of the company, how is that value going to interplay amongst the team members? How is that value going to interplay between different teams that are working together? That might have a bit of a challenge. Isn't that a great conversation to have instead of, well, we're a Scrum team, so we have these 5 values?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and even what if you just want to add a 6th? What if your organization is going through an upheaval and you decide that humility should be added as the 6th value, or integrity, or
Yeah.
kindness, or I think there's so many other values that we could mix in that could actually amplify the other 5. I mean, even just having a little bit, you don't have to throw them all away. We're not saying toss all 5, but what if just adding something to the mix, or swapping a few out, but having that be, your idea around, or your statement around that only pastors and parents should be teaching values, right?
Yeah.
Pastors and parents create localized solutions for values. Every congregation has a statement of faith and beliefs that turn into values. Every set of parents across the globe are teaching their kids there's some commonalities,
Yeah.
but there's definitely, in our 4 walls, it's different than what another set of 4 walls looks like. Why wouldn't the teams have their own identity through the values that they express and believe in as well? And I think that's an important question, right?
Yeah. And I will add to that. There's nothing there that says you can't add more values. That's just one thing, a little bit of framework, right? Here's the bare
Right.
minimum. Pack on stuff as you need, and you'll figure out what's needed and what's not needed. But you've got that piece in the middle, and the 5 values are part of the core. And what I'm suggesting is those pieces shouldn't be part of the core. Those pieces
Yep.
should be entirely optional. And if maybe you don't need 5 values, maybe um, kindness is all you need, right?
Yeah.
Like, why add all of these additional pieces where, kindness and humility, those are our values. And kindness and humility will allow us to create an environment of trust where we can be empirical. I would much rather, if I'm working with a Scrum Master and I've got a Scrum Master, if I ask him what the 5 Scrum values are, he can't tell me that. But when I ask him what the values of the teams are, he says, well, here are our values. And we picked these values because they really help us build an environment of trust and empiricism. I would much rather have that answer than have the answer. It's like, oh, the 5 are focus, commitment, respect, whatever they are, right? I'd much rather have that deeper conversation because they found the right values that meet the purpose than to be able to recite the 5 by rote. In much the same way with the 3, like asking someone, daily Scrum, I know exactly what the 3 questions are. Why do we ask those? Well, I don't know why we ask those.
Right.
Eh.
Yeah, the purpose behind it, and it makes me think of, if Jesus can take the 10 commandments and reduce it down to love one another like you love yourself, I think we can take the 5 values and reduce it to something local as well.
Yeah.
Something meaningful to all of us, right?
Yeah. Part of Scrum is this, a lot of lean thinking goes into Scrum. So if we can strip it down to make it even more lean, I'm all for that.
Yeah. And that's right. That's what we like too. So this is an encouragement. We hope that all of you take a look at the Scrum Guide and realize, look, the behavioral aspect of Scrum is important. I truly believe that without a value set, and whether it's your localized one or the Scrum Guide, you get zombie Scrum. Yeah. You get bad Scrum, you get rote, routine, mechanical Scrum. And so behavior is important, but the behaviors that you need versus what another team need, that's the point here, are likely different. And if a different set of values amplify the behaviors that you need, swap them out, try something different, run an experiment, talk to your team and see what could happen, right?
Find what's best for you. I mean, for me, that's a big key component of Scrum. Find what works best for you. And just to maybe, throw another bomb there. And if like Scrum isn't best for you, if something else works better for you, awesome. That's great. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
If you find a better way to bring empiricism forward, you're probably going to get our attention, right?
Yeah. Let me know about it. I would love to hear if you find something better than Scrum.
Yeah. We're always looking.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks everybody for joining us. Steve, that was a fun topic.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw up the end screen here. Encourage everybody to check out the socials, like and subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. We have a lot of Fixing Your Kanban videos coming up with Daniel Vacanti. We have Fixing Your Scrum, which will be emerging soon. Your Daily Scrum is every day, and now Fixing Your Agile Coaching weekly. And we'd hate for you to miss a video, so like and subscribe. Check out the videos below. Leave us a comment. Let us know what your questions are. There's some big Scrum questions that you have that we can bring great experts like Steve on to help us talk through. Let us know in the comments. Ask your questions, and we'll see if we can answer them next time. So thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.